everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Ufama and I'm an older first-time mum to AJ, who is 7.5 months old now, and I use this channel to talk about all the fantastic things about being an older first-time mum. I talk about stuff relating to fertility, relating to parenting, children's development, food, fashion, lifestyle, fun, you name it, I cover it here. So today's video is called We Get Endometriosis Too, and by we I mean black women. But that's not to say that this video is only for black women or only talking to black women, but I'm just talking about the fact that endometriosis affects black women. Black women are also sufferers of endometriosis, and the reason I feel the need to make this video and have this discussion is that I've noticed in the last few years that most, if not all, of the coverage I see on national television especially, and in the news media, all of the coverage about endometriosis only ever features white women who are suffering from the condition. And I don't think that's down to racism. I just put it down to perhaps, I don't want to use the word lazy, but producers and researchers who are only reaching out to their immediate networks. Most people probably know a woman who has been diagnosed with endometriosis or has suspected endometriosis or has some of the symptoms of endometriosis, which are really, really commonplace. But you know, if it's white producers and white researchers, white journalists researching the topic or the story, I just get the feeling that they're perhaps not reaching out of their own kind of immediate networks, and as such are not reaching out to black or Asian women who suffer from the condition. And the reason I think that's a real shame is that from a public health perspective, the messaging around this, I wouldn't be surprised if lots of young black and Asian women sitting at home watching stuff on TV when it does come up about endometriosis begin to think that it's not something that applies to them necessarily or affects them, even though they may have some of the symptoms that are being talked about. And that's just because they're not seeing women who look like them speaking about it. And yeah, so as I say, from a public health messaging perspective, I think black and Asian women are being left out and being forgotten for, you know, who knows what the reasons are. I don't think it's necessarily about racism. I just think it's an oversight, but this is a serious health condition, and I don't think anybody should be left out of the story and left out of the explanations and the representation about it, because it could affect any of us. And there's an overarching narrative about endometriosis, which is that it takes far too long for it to be diagnosed. Generally across, you know, across the majority population who are white women, even they are having 8, 9, 10 plus years wait before it's actually diagnosed. Talk less of women who are presenting to the doctors much later because they have no idea that what they are experiencing might be endometriosis. And that's why I want to speak about black women and Asian women, and well, myself being a black woman and the fact that I was diagnosed with endometriosis. That's why I think it's important to talk about this. So in terms of that diagnosis, how did I get to that point? Well, you know, I started having periods at a fairly typical age, I think about 11, and my periods, you know, that first period, I remember waking up in the middle of the night being really scared, or maybe middle of the night is an exaggeration, I think it was early morning, and knocking on my mum and dad's bedroom door, and I said, you know, Mummy, I think there's something wrong with me. And I remember my mum chuckling, and I don't know whether she said it's your period to me, but she said something reassuring, I don't know, and I think she told my dad, and she just had a big smile on her face. So I thought, okay, maybe it's not so bad after all. But it was painful, that very first period. And as I said, I was 11 when I started my periods, and throughout my teens I had heavy, painful periods. And you know, at school I would get quite a lot of sympathy for it. I remember having to go to the nurse's office quite often at school when I had my period just to lie down for a bit because the pain was really, really severe. Going to the doctors about it and just being told, you know, you're unlucky, you've got really bad period pains, take these pills. Around 16, 17, I think it was, I was actually prescribed the contraceptive pill and told that that was a way of lightening the periods and potentially reducing the pain, but I didn't get on with that very well. So I think after just 2 or 3 months being on the pill, having mood swings, gaining weight, I said, no, this is not for me. And then the next thing was for me to be prescribed really strong painkillers. Mefenemic acid is what it was. And those tablets themselves used to irritate my stomach until I got used to making sure I'd had something substantial to eat before taking those pills. And I was on those into my 20s, I would say, into my mid-20s at least, maybe later. And then in my early 30s, particularly I think when I moved to Nigeria, the pain reduced, and that may have been due to changes in my diet, changes in the climate, the environment, I don't know, but the pain was a lot more manageable. I weaned myself off of the mefenemic acid. That was before the mefenemic acid, actually. I should have said that for years I was basically maxing out on paracetamol, you know, taking the daily dose every day of my period before I moved on to the mefenemic acid. But yeah, by my early 30s, when I'd moved to Nigeria, the pain eased off a bit. And, you know, I think, yeah, it was manageable. I think I could survive with just a hot water bottle. And at some point in my early 30s, I remember actually getting referred for a scan to check specifically for endometriosis, and I was told that I didn't have it. So, you know, that was a relief, or so I thought. I had, you know, spent the rest of my time in Nigeria. I was there for 5 years, came back in 2016, and I met my now husband, middle of 2016, just weeks after I got back, basically. And a year later, when it looked like we were going to get married, I decided to go and kind of, you know, have another quick checkup. And I had a scan and another scan, and again I was told everything looked fine. I just had one tiny little fibroid that wasn't going to be a problem when it came to you know, my fertility and ability to get pregnant. So that was 2017, that was fine. We got married in 2018, yay! And then, yeah, we got married, and my mother-in-law was visiting. You know, she'd come over for the wedding, and she stayed with us for a few weeks after. And she just said to me in a really sweet, non-pushy way, you know, have you been to the doctors, or have you been to the hospital? And she was referring to, like, you know, getting checked out for you know, for fertility reasons. And I had been planning to go back and have a proper fertility health check, which I would recommend all women do at some point. Don't necessarily leave it just until you know, you think you want to start trying, which is what I ended up doing. But yeah, I so had that little nudge from my mother-in-law, just, you know, gave me the kick I needed to actually start booking the appointments. My older sister, who's a gynecologist, advised that I went down the NHS route as far as I could before going private. We're lucky enough to have private medical insurance, so I kind of did things in parallel. I had a scan on the NHS, and just instantly the sonographer in the GP surgery said, "Oh, you've got a big cyst." I think she called it a cyst, yeah. And that was the first kind of warning sign I got in terms of confirmation from medical professionals. Previous warning signs I'd had in the months leading up to the wedding, I had noticed that I was getting a bit more bloating around my period than I had done ever before. And the other thing was that I needed to go to the toilet like a lot more often. And, you know, it was a bit of a joke between my husband and I that, you know, I couldn't go anywhere without needing the loo and things like that. And so, to cut a long story short, the cyst that was seen on that NHS scan was actually pushing on my bladder, and that's why I was needing to go to the loo. And I think that may have had a large part to do with the swelling around the time of the month as well. Literally, I think I'd booked a private scan and full fertility health check about a week after this NHS scan. They were definitely both in August 2018 anyway. And that private scan and checkup diagnosed severe endometriosis. They said it was stage 4, which is the highest level of endometriosis. And they also confirmed the presence of that cyst. The cyst was measuring 9, almost 10 centimetres in diameter, and apparently anything over 5 centimetres is usually recommended for removal. So this thing, as far as I'm concerned and understand, had come out of nowhere. As I said, I'd had a scan in 2017, private scan, nothing was detected of that nature, and then by 2018 I had this big cyst that needed to be removed. And the cyst was called an endometrioma, so it's related to the endometriosis. I should start explaining at this point that endometriosis is basically a condition where the tissues that usually form the lining of your womb, so would be inside your womb, appear outside of the womb, most commonly around other reproductive organs like your ovaries, but anywhere really within the abdominal cavity. This tissue builds up, and it can also result in the formation of cysts, and basically the monthly shedding of the lining of our womb that's usually meant to come out of the body. Sometimes some of the kind of old tissue and blood fills up in these cysts instead, and that's what had happened to me. So by the time I had it removed in the September 2018, I believe the surgeon, I had it removed privately, and the surgeon said that she removed half a litre, so 500 millilitres of what they call chocolatey fluid. That's old blood and, you know, tissue from within this cyst. So it was basically drained. She said that she removed some of the wall of the cyst, but not all, and the reason for that was that it was around my left ovary, I think, and there's always a danger with this surgery that you know, you could damage an ovary or a fallopian tube, wherever it's being removed from. So to kind of preserve as much of the ovary as she could, some of the wall of the cyst, or the lining of the sac, if you like, of the cyst remained in place. So yeah, so that's me. So if, as I've said, you know, I've always had painful periods. There's a good chance that, you know, this endometriosis, considering it was stage 4 by the time it was diagnosed, had been there for quite some time, and it wasn't actually diagnosed till I was in my late 30s and wanting to get pregnant. And I think that's a really, really common story. What's less common, as I said at the beginning of this video, in terms of the way endometriosis is spoken about and reported on and awareness is raised, is to see someone who looks like me talking about it. And I think it's really important for someone that looks like me to talk about it more, so that other Black women and Asian women are more aware that it's something that affects us too, and it's something that you shouldn't be scared to ask your doctor about. If you're having heavy, painful periods, and you have done for a long amount of time, you're noticing any changes, like, you know, increased bloating. It could be any number of things, but it could definitely be endometriosis. And the only way you're going to find that out is if you go to your GP, ask for a scan, ask to be referred to, you know, a local hospital for a gynecologist to take a look at you, have a scan, and find out once and for all. And on the topic of once and for all, you'll also be told by doctors that a scan often isn't enough to confirm endometriosis 100%. They usually have to do a procedure called a laparoscopy, which is a keyhole procedure where they make 3 incisions in your abdomen. It's usually 1 in your belly button. I think that's where the camera goes through, and then 2 more in your abdomen where other stuff happens. I can't lie, I don't know exactly what they do with those other two. That could be where they pull stuff out of, I don't know. But you get 3 incisions anyway, and that's where they go in, they have a look around your, your abdomen, and they will identify whether you do have endometriosis. So they're looking for, dark patches. And then they will use, I think, some kind of laser therapy to kind of burn off the patches of endometriosis where they can, and they will also drain any cysts that they find in there as well. And that's what happened to me in September 2018. And so, yeah, at that point, I had a wonderful doctor at a private hospital near us, and she said, right, this is the time now for you to really try and get pregnant. And so, I started down that route, and unfortunately by the November, so I had first procedure to remove the endometriosis in the September. By November, when I went for scans, the cyst was beginning to fill up again, which was quite depressing. And I ended up having to have another procedure the following year in June 2019. That's right, I had a bit of a break. I said I wanted to enjoy my birthday, my husband's birthday. We had some holidays planned, go on those holidays, have a blast, and then come back and have the procedure again, which I did in the June. And I got pregnant the November after that, so almost 6 months later, with assistance. Yeah, that's my story. I mean, lots of women do have endometriosis and go on to get pregnant naturally or with IVF. It's not a complete dead end when it comes to fertility if you get diagnosed with endometriosis. The important thing is just to know that you have it, know what your options are, know what you're dealing with, and get it treated. Now, I mentioned having those procedures. Some people prefer to try and go down the holistic or natural therapy route, and that may work depending on the severity of your endometriosis. There's a number of things out there which I also did, just to kind of manage the condition. First, and really importantly, was modifying my diet. So cutting out dairy and gluten was important when it came to managing the endometriosis. And I think I did see an improvement in the nature of my periods, the pain going away when I cut out dairy and gluten. And then there are some other things that you can do, like these castor oil packs, which are meant to kind of help draw out the old blood from your system. I did use castor oil packs in the year that I was trying to conceive. I don't know how effective they were, but even just mentally knowing that you're doing some things to try and take control of the situation, I think can really, really help. And so with the castor oil pack, I looked up how to kind of put one together online. Haven't done one for a while, but I'm planning to get back into them. And from memory, you need a hot water bottle, you need a cotton piece of cloth. I think I used a tea towel. And what I did was soak that piece of cloth in castor oil. I then wrapped that piece of cloth in cling film to stop the oil from getting everywhere. And then you get the hot water bottle, fill it up with hot water, wrap that with a towel rather than just using your regular hot water bottle cover. I think that's just in case you do get oil in places and you want to be able to wash something quickly and easily. I wrapped the hot water bottle in a towel, place the castor oil pack, which is your tea towel or your piece of cloth soaked in castor oil, wrapped in cling film, place that over your abdomen, kind of I think the lower part of your abdomen, covering your belly button, making sure that it's going across both sides, I think, rather than just being on the left or just being on the right. So kind of covering, you know, your womb area and your ovaries. And then, so you've got the cling film wrapped piece of oil soaked cloth, if that makes sense, on your tummy, and then you put the hot water bottle wrapped in a towel to protect yourself from the heat on top of the castor oil pack, and then just relax for half an hour or so, you know, watching something on Netflix or whatever channel floats your boat. And I believe the advice is to do that every day for about 5 days, 3 to 5 days in a row. You just don't do it when you're on your period. I don't know whether there's a particular time in the cycle when it's best to do it. Perhaps towards the end of, like, you know, a day or so after your period's finished, maybe when brown blood is starting to come out. Sorry for the graphic description, but yeah, definitely not during your period. Don't do castor oil packs during your period, do it after. And the same applies for the yoni steaming as well. Do that just as your period's kind of just ended, just to draw out any of the last dregs of old blood. So yeah, that's my advice. When it comes to endometriosis, don't suffer in silence. Don't second guess what's causing your pain. Don't just pop painkillers. Go to your doctor, say you've heard about endometriosis and you would like to rule it out. Doesn't you know, it shouldn't be difficult for them to make the decision to refer you for the scan. If you've got private medical care or access to it, it's probably just going to be quicker to go down that route, but otherwise you wait for your NHS referral, let them, you know, give you an initial scan. If they suspect it is endometriosis, they're probably going to tell you they want to do a laparoscopy to be sure, so be prepared. My scars have actually healed quite nicely. They were much more prominent, but after being pregnant, I don't know whether the skin being stretched was kind of flattened out the scars somehow, but they're much better now. They weren't that bad anyway. So yeah, you might have the laparoscopy. They'll be able to tell you conclusively whether you do have endometriosis or not, and if you do, they can often treat it during that laparoscopy procedure. They'll do the burning off excision, as I mentioned, to get rid of any patches and drain any cysts that they can safely, without compromising your ovaries. And yeah, then that's that. And lots of women who have struggled to get pregnant as a result of endometriosis find that they can, either naturally or with IVF, after they've had the laparoscopy. So that's that. That's my take on endometriosis. That's my experience of it. And as I said, I just wanted to do this video to explain to people and make people aware that we get endometriosis too. It's not just a white women's disease, and it's important that we get ourselves checked and get ourselves into the best possible position to be able to have children. So I hope this video has been useful. If you haven't done already, please subscribe to my videos, to my channel. Like this video if you did, give me a thumbs up. It would be great to have any comments on this video, either what I've said, any questions, any points that you want clarified, or just to share your own experiences of being diagnosed with endometriosis, how you handle it, how you manage it, and any other things that you might want to share. Thanks for your time. Take care and see you next time. Bye.